our journey is digital conversions, and we are in the insurance industry. And for my consulting as well, I'm in the insurance industry.
Excellent. And for folks who haven't heard the term before, what is a digital conversion?
So when you talk about digital, it's mainly social media. You know how, let's make an example. Let's say you go online, you're looking for a funeral policy, or you're looking for insurance. When you fill up a form, or when you click on an ad or something, there's somebody always following up and checking whether you are a good lead or not. So we look at conversion rates of those people that go on and click the websites or call in or respond to SMSs. And then we have like targets that we want to meet. So what we do, we advise insurance companies how to increase or improve their conversion rates into sales.
And when you're doing that sort of work, and you say you work in analytics, what are some of those metrics or analytics that are really important to keep in mind if you're working in digital conversion, or if you're working in sales, or you're working in insurance? What are those numbers, those metrics that people should know?
So first of all, we talk about leads. So you've got companies that actually collect information. You know how you go on a website and they'll ask you to click that they can take your information and all that stuff. That information gets sold to insurance companies. And after it gets sold to insurance companies, then they will contact you based on your interest and where you go. So one of the matrices that we look at is how many leads we get, because we are one of the companies that buy that information. So when we buy the information, we sell it to the insurance companies. They'll do the actual calling, trying to convince people that this is the right product for you based on the profile of the individual that we've sent to. So one of the things that we measure is, sometimes people take packages, then when the first payment must go off or the first premium, they just cancel out, they enforce them. They normally do it 3 times. We measure those kind of things. The other stuff that's important for us that we also look at is those customers that fall out in between when they are being brought online, and then they've been told that, okay, this is what you can afford. But when it goes for approval, the QC rejects it. So those are some of the matrices just to keep it high level. And also, we also look at, let's say you've been with an insurance company, maybe either for funeral or car insurance, or whatever. After 6 months, you fall off. So we want to know what the percentage of clients that we're losing, what kind of clients are we losing, why are we losing these particular clients, and all those things. And that is what informs the kind of products that will come up with, or improvements that they'll make to how they source their clients or the products that they have.
Got it. So sort of like a churn model.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Wow, well, thank you for that sort of overview of what it is that you do. I'm curious, how did you get started in data science? Have you always worked in this field?
No, but I've worked in the statistical and research field. My background is that I'm a statistician, and departments that I've worked in include finance. I've also worked in research, I've worked in security, and I've worked in HR, and I was doing analytics and other things. So while I was working there, I picked up that there was this disconnect. I could do the calculations, the stats and the reports, but I could not code further than what SPSS or SAS or whatever I'm using at that point allows me. But I needed that coding knowledge so that if I want to build something, I can build it. Because when you do research, for example, you find you're doing NPS or you're doing customer segmentation or brand audit for a client, you could use Zoho, you could use Power BI, you could use something else, but I don't want to use something that a client can go off the shelf and buy for themselves as well. I also wanted to tie them with me so that I can create a bespoke dashboard. So that's the thing that what that got me started. So when I started, I wasn't looking for data science. I was actually looking to learn how to code. So I started with HTML and CSS, and then I tried Java, but I was not getting it. Then I went back and I looked at what other languages can I learn that would help me, with websites and stuff. Then I found Python. Then as I was looking at Python, I realized there is this thing called data science. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, oh, this is that puzzle that I was missing. And then I started the journey from there. I think this was like a year and a half ago that I started. And I must say it wasn't an easy one, because when you're doing it on your own, there's so many learning platforms, it can be so overwhelming. And I did quite a few before I found you guys. I like literally, but what I found was, even when I was finished, you got the certificate, I still don't really understand how to apply what I've learned. I don't know where to start,
And so, how did you kind of solve that issue where it's like, I've learned some things, but I'm not sure where to apply it? How did you kind of break through that barrier? Because I know a lot of students, one student in the chat is saying,
okay, so I started with you guys, and then because I think I did with, Free Code Academy, and there were two plural sides. Then when I started with you guys, the things that I learned made so much sense, because the platform is so interactive. Even though I'm not talking to you, I am talking to you. So when I got to project 4, I think, I had the confidence to start. When I got to project 4, I started having that confidence. I started putting my CV out there and said, you know what, I've got these, because I could start understanding what it means when they say you're building a model, because you made it so easy. It was so confusing for me. But when that machine learning framework that you always show us, like you're going to start, you're going to explore, you're going to do this, I always apply that. And I'll give you an example. When you go in, let me talk about when they appointed me the first time, because when you go for the interview as a data scientist, there's so many things that you go through. They'll ask you the technical questions. If you pass those, then they send you the technical assessment. When you're done with that, then they'll do the team fit. When you're done with that, then they do the psychometric. Then when you pass that, then you're fine. So I followed that to the T, and then they give you data that you must sort of look at. Then it's the same thing over and over. And I realized what was making me panic was not that I don't know what to do. I felt like I couldn't do it. But when I got the data, I started, you explore first, obviously, and I had to clean the data. I followed the steps to the T, and that helped. And then when I started working there, I realized it's not as bad as I thought, because they already have models. And when you go in, they've already coded some of the stuff, and it's not like they're going to give you data today and say, yeah, come up with the model tomorrow. You're going to go through the phases. So you first have to clean your data, which can take a long time depending on what kind of data you get. Then when you're done with the data, you do need to do some EDA, where you explore the data, because there's some things that you can get out of the data that will help you when you build your model. And there's things that you don't want to miss, like missing data. You want a model that accommodates for all these things that you pick up. But then the major thing that gave me comfort even now was that when I was sitting with people that have been doing this for like 2 years, 3 years, they would also go online to check how models work, to check out to code the model. So it's not like you're going to go in and you're on your own and you must know all these things. And there's so many platforms and so many forums that you can go to and get all the different models and use that information. So when you have a model that's not fitting correctly, or it's overfitting, it's not generalizing well, you go and look for something else, and the business will understand that. And that gave me more confidence, because you try the first model. If that doesn't work, you find another model, which is great, because you have to have that mindset of learning. And that now has given me so much confidence. The other thing that has truly, truly helped me is that if I get stuck, I just go back on my notes because I kept taking notes everywhere. And I just go back and they remind me of certain things and I'm good to go. And maybe just to add to people that I truly understand how most people are feeling. You'd understand what's happening. I mean, when I'm with you in the classroom, I get everything. And then when you're not there, I panic that, will I be able to do this? Yes, you will. Just follow, like have a proper workflow that I'm going to do this. After this, I'm going to do this. Then you're going to get it. Like it's just going to happen. And don't think that you must know everything at that same time. And if you're a person that does not like learning, then data science is not for you because you constantly and consistently need to learn. I'm sorry I'm going on and on, like,
no, absolutely. Continue.
I had to learn so much in a short space of time because as much as I got appointed, when I started, I realized I do know how to query data from SQL, but I don't know SQL. I know the basics of SQL, but I've never actually worked in SQL. So I had to go crash course fast, and understand SQL. And when you know Python, for some reasons, like a switch goes on in your head. The other languages, they make sense. Everything becomes quick. Like when they said you must get an average of this from SQL, I already knew average is AVG without knowing words, So the more you code, the easier it is. So I suppose that's why people who do Java first, when they go to Python, it's easier. When you move to something else, it's also easy. So have that learning mentality and you will make it because you do have to know, you do need to know SQL. You do need to know some dashboard building, maybe in either Power BI. You do need to know maybe a ClickView or TableView, depending on which company you're going to work at. But most companies, as long as you know how to create the models, the different models, you know a little bit of that and that, they are willing to go on that learning journey with you.
Wow, that's very powerful, all that you said. A lot of things jump out to me. I think first, the idea of lifelong learning, that you always need to be learning. And I totally agree, and I'm glad to hear you say that that's important. Also, a lot of times when we're learning something new, we kind of have this idea like, I must know everything before I can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, no, you don't. You maybe learn, some of it, and then the rest you can jump out and begin learning,
Yes.
And I think what I really struck me is it almost seems like for you, coding happens within kind of a community, like it takes a community to code.
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah.
There's so many things like I would think in my head that I want to transform this data in this way, but I don't know how to do it. So the fact that I can think it means it's possible. I just don't know how to do it. And the fact that I can go online, go to a community, post a question, and somebody will respond, or I'll find somebody that posted it for me already. That is so powerful. And I started understanding why we have the forums even on the learners, because if we all unite and all help each other, then it moves so faster. Like you're not alone, because coding on its own is just something else.
And what are these places where you are finding help? Is it like Stack Overflow? Are there other places?
Yes, it's Stack Overflow. What's the other one? I have 3 places that I normally go to. I go to Kaggle as well. I ask a few questions there. I also do GitHub. I ask questions there. But most of the time, I find most of my answers on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what do you look for when you're going to Stack Overflow? How do you know looking at is going to be helpful to you or not?
Normally, I like you advised, I check when this was posted, because there's different versions and things change in Python and all those things. And then
there is that area where they tell you that this has been resolved or not. And then I tested out myself as well. And the other thing is, what I've found out is you need to be comfortable in your own skin and find coding that you understand. So sometimes there's people that are so advanced in their coding, I don't want them to, I don't take that kind of code because I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. And then I don't want to put code that when I come back 6 months later, I don't even remember what I did there, but it's there and it's working. So I normally avoid code for now. That is like so complicated. You know, where it's like 2 lines for something that takes 5. I like code that is like spread out so that I can see what I'm doing at every step. So I'll normally, you find this one question and then there's like 5 different answers. I'll find the best that I can resonate with and I know I can understand.
Yeah, because, you know, you're going to come back to that code in 5 months to fix a bug. And if you can't understand that code, if you can't, I guess I would say grok it, you know, then what good is it?
Yeah, true. And there's something that you do that I want to point out to everyone, and it's very important. I saw it when I was working with the other company. You know how and we write what we're doing?
Yeah, sure.
That is so important. We were working on a project and they were trying to take code. You know, sometimes you recycle code. So they had written code from something else and it was just a mess. And they couldn't remember where to look for this code. And they couldn't remember what did what. Because some of the codes they also got somewhere else, and that was part of the reason why I left. And I realized I actually know more, and I must give myself credit as well. So when you comment out stuff and you write what you're doing, that is not only for you, but even for the person that comes and looks at that code. It makes life so much easy. So I had to go up and down the whole code because we needed to tweak something for the model that was built. We couldn't find where to tweak. So I realized, I was like, wow, commenting out and writing and being like, you know, having a process, like following the steps through, it makes life so much easier.
A teacher and colleague of mine by the name of Russell had a great observation, which is code is written once, but then it's read hundreds of times after that. And so making it readable and understandable to the people who come after you is really important.
That's very true. Yeah. That's very, very true. And then maybe just to add, sorry, Nikki, I'm just babbling on because I'm remembering things that I picked up that I would like to share. One of the things that people must realize is when you deal with real life data, like we all know this, but I work with like huge companies that when you look from outside, you think it's like an international company. They must have stuff in place. Even from the job profiles or the job specs that they sent you. Please do apply because you will be shocked when you go there. Most of them don't even have databases. They work off Excel. But they have these bombastic job profiles that will make you think they're using those things. It's a wish list. You find out of 10 things that they have there, they're only using one. It's a wish list. They probably want somebody to come and introduce those things. I was shocked. We had one client that sent us 8 different tables. They themselves they couldn't even explain to us what the columns meant. We had to clean the data, engage with them, and before you can even build a machine, you know, the algorithm, you need to clean and understand what's going on. And in most cases, your client is in the dark. They're more lost than you. But you will come in and give structure to that data. You will come in and give insights to that data. You will come in and, if possible, you build an algorithm. Sometimes the data is in such a state, at that point, all you can do is EDA.
Wow, that's tremendous. And so one thing to keep in mind mind is when you see those job ads and they list 10 things, it's a wish list, right? And so even if you just have one or two of those, it doesn't, you have to brush off your imposter syndrome and throw your hat in the ring and send in a resume.
Yeah, because when I applied, they wanted Azure storage blob. You had to know that. You had to do AWS. When I applied, I had not done those things. And when they asked me, I told them, hey, I don't know these things, but I'm sure I can learn them. I mean, everybody learns these things, so I can learn them. And when I got in, they don't have AWS. They did have Azure, but they were not using it extensively. They were just using it for the VMs. So you do need to have that knowledge that as much as I see this job description, if I understand what machine learning is, I understand the steps that I need to take to get to the end and have predictions or all these things, then apply. You never know. Apply.
You never know. I love it. Well, you've talked kind of broadly about some of these amazing projects that you've done. Is there like a specific project that you're particularly proud of that you could maybe walk us through so we could kind of learn a little bit more about those details?
Let's see. Yeah, there's one. It's for medical aid, but it was just when we started. They just wanted a dashboard, and like I said, it's big, but they don't have the architecture or infrastructure. They use Excel, so I had to create the dashboard in Excel and take that information to Python and do further analysis in Python. So basically what they wanted to look at was they have all these products that they're selling. They wanted to see how they were doing as a business on a monthly basis per advisor that they have per region. So the first thing was to give them insights into that. So obviously when you do that, the first thing you look at the data, you look at what you have, you start cleaning your data. And
so let's pause here for a second. So you had to start looking at the data, and they gave all that data to you in an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said you needed to bring it into Python. So how did you do that?
Okay.
I just I saved it as an Excel spreadsheet because it was that. But you know how we normally do read CSV? Now it was read Excel.
Okay.
And then I put it up. Yeah.
Got it. And then, so you were using pandas to kind of pull out insight from there? Okay. Tell us more.
So I did the normal stuff that you do, just did the head just to see what I'm looking at. Then I looked for outliers. I looked for correlations between, the columns that I had, because there was a lot of back and forth, because they give you data, and there's one thing that guys need to be aware of. The client is going to give you data with the assumption that you work there. They're not really going to explain some of this stuff, so you need to stand your ground and actually be the expert in that field, then you need to guide them on what is needed. So one of the things that I did, and I do it for all the things that I work in, I create a glossary list, because clients have amnesia. They will agree on a calculation or on a way to do things, and then they'll forget or they'll deny afterwards. So I created a glossary list even for myself to say this column means this means that, and they would mark it off. And then once we agreed on that, I will go and look at the columns. I'll do the normal stuff where you do your histograms, you do your scatter plots, you look for all those things like normal EDA. Then when I was done with that, because they were not interested in machine learning, they wanted like insights. But what I did after that, I realized, okay, we've got 3 major projects. And one of the main thing is they want to measure performance of their consultants or advisors. What I can actually do now, I can predict maybe for the next coming 3 weeks or 4 weeks for them per consultant, and say, look, based on the data that we've got, this consultant's not going to make it. Maybe, this is the predictions that we've got. Maybe start talking to them now and start being proactive instead of being reactive after you get the results and you bring them in. So maybe help them learn. So that was what I did. But the main thing was, after explore all your data, you do all the analysis that you could do. Then after that, I started building the algorithm, and I tried different ones. I tried the linear one. It didn't give me a high accuracy rate. And then I said, okay, maybe I can try time series, because it is time series because it's weekly, monthly, and yes. But there was some seasonality, and it didn't account for that. Yes, it didn't account for it properly. And then I tried Facebook Profit, and that worked out nicely.
Facebook Profit does take care of a lot of that stuff for you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Excellent. Let me drop a link in there. And tell us more about the dashboard phase. How did you present these insights to your stakeholders?
Tell us more about the dashboard.
Okay, so with the dashboard, because that was like the primary thing, they'll send you data that's like wonky. You must expect that. You'll do a lot of data cleaning and data modeling. So they sent me in Excel, and then what they did, they told me what they do and what they would like to see. So what I did was, because I've been building dashboards, I created dialers for them so that they could see just by opening the dashboard whether they could doing good or well, bad or not. And then, how in Excel you have that analysis tool pack, who a lot of people don't use. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know about it either. So tell us more.
Okay.
There is an analysis tool pack in Excel. Let's say you're not using Python, or you're not using R or anything else. You're using Excel. So it does like basic calculations. It can build like a multivariate regression or linear model, just like the statistical one, not machine learning, or just do your intercepts and your coefficients. So yes, and it will plot your residuals from the actuals for you, based on the data points that you give it. So what I did was very important, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. So what I did was very important. You must assess the room, assess your stakeholders, and then present your findings or your insights or whatever product that you have at their level. And then you will stack it up as they go, because they will shut down. So I started off by very basic. No, let me not lie. I did like a fancy dashboard, like fancy, with graphs and stuff. When you click here, the graph changes. What I didn't realize, it was overwhelming for the client. They wanted something very simple. The insurance people, they don't want funny stuff. He just wanted something when he looks at it, he just gets it. So I didn't read the room. So it's very important to read the room. And you might have skills that are at 100, but your client's capabilities at 2. You need to bring it down at 2 and then grow with him to the 100. So I started off very basic, just show them, this is what your advisors look like on week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. This is the best performing, this is the worst performing. Your KPIs that for your life, you want it to be at 25. It's not at 25, it's at 30. For this, you want it to be at 20, it's not there, it's at 30 or whatever. And then I sent it, they were very happy with that. Then when they sent it back and said, can you update this for us? Then I added and I said, can I teach you what a mean is? When we say the mean and the max and all those things. And they were very keen because it gave them very good information about it. And when they sent it back, then I started doing your coefficients, and I said, okay, let's build a simple linear, equation where you say, if it's this, what's this advisor, then this is the production I'm going to get. If it's this advisor, this week, this month, this is how much I'm going to get. And that's how I introduce them to say, there's something called Python. We can actually do this, and then we can have predictions for you. And then that's how they bought in.
Can you tell us more about a couple questions. First, I noticed you used a term KPI. What does KPI mean?
So it's a key performance indicator. So it depends. Okay, let me go back. So when you're called in either as a consultant or you're working for a company as a data scientist, and I don't know how I forgot this, very important. You're not only required to know coding. A lot of people get scared because they think my coding skills are not on point, they're not sharp. That's one of the skills that you have to have. The other skill besides the stats and the math is business knowledge and understanding, because you'll be solving business problems. So it's very important that you speak business acumen, because you'll be called in and people are going to be throwing words around like bottom line, blah, 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 KPIs, this. If you don't understand that, then you're going to build a model that does not add value to any business. So it's very important that when you go in as a data scientist or as an analyst or whatever you are, one of the core critical things that you need to have is business acumen knowledge. And it doesn't have to be like 100%, but if you do understand that, know that you're on the right path, because that is one of the things that you need to have. So when I sat with them, they showed me like their scorecards, and we had to figure out what KPIs were important for them to be able to meet their targets. And that's what we build the dashboard around, to say if we're going to measure this, then it is going to give you this KPI. So when I was also building the model, because we had already done the EDA, I understood what the business was about, what the challenges are, then it's very easy to build something that can help them in their decision making, or having that, advantage in 2, 3 or 4 weeks.
Got it. Excellent. And the second question I want to ask is, could you give us some examples about how do you read the room? Are there questions that you ask? Are there things that you look for? What would be some advice you give to people for trying to find the level of their audience before they begin collaborating and explaining?
That's a very good question. So it's the type of questions that they will ask you. And then it's when you ask questions, how they respond. I think there's two things. There's the technical part, which you are there for, right? And then there's the...
Go ahead, LESEGO.
Okay. So they would have the business knowledge and the business acumen that will help you understand their business proper. But let's say you're dealing with executives. They don't want to be boggled down into the details. They want high-level stuff. They just want, I'm here. If you're dealing with operational people, they need to understand why the top people are not happy or they're happy. What's happening to this team? What's happening to that? But even given that, when you talk to them, you'll pick up very quickly where they are in terms of maturity as an organization. Like, let's say I'm going into a meeting, right? Like when I said I didn't read them. When I went there, I asked them, how are you going to send me? Are you getting this from a SQL database? Is it coming from a data lake? Is it coming? Where's the information coming from? Because I know with big companies, red tape is one thing. Yeah. So they're like, no, we're going to give you Excel. My thinking was, if they're going to give me Excel, that means they work on Excel a lot. Yeah. And I just went off a tangent and just started talking about all kinds of things that I can do. And the room was quiet. And I didn't read that, because nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. And then they kept saying, you're the expert, you do it. And then I should have read it at that point that they're not at the same level as me. So it could be different things. First of all, you assess which audience is it. Your operational staff, is it middle management, is it upper management, because everyone's got different roles. Then when you go there, even sometimes when it's upper management, they don't want fancy things, they want things that work. So you need to also check what I also do. I check previous annual reports to see how glossy they are or what's happening there. Then I'll ask them, can you give me like old reports, just to have a feel of how they were reporting before. And then I can, build along those lines, and I'll improve as I go. because that's also very important. You create something that's beautiful, but nobody uses it.
Because that's also very important.
That's so true. It really drives home how we often think about the hard skills, like the technical skills, as what we need to learn as data scientists. But what we call the soft skills are so much more, or equally, if not more important. In both getting information from your client, learning what it is that they need, and taking their expertise and finding a way to combine it with your own in a way that's productive for everyone.
That's very true. I'll also give you an example. The project we're working on now, it's insurance, and like they want the churn rate, they want to know all these things. And on top of that, they want us from the data to advise them on improvements that they can make to their call center, to the chat, to whatever, based on what we see from the data. So you're not only analyzing and building, you're also advising. So that's why I'm saying, that's why they say data scientists are ninjas, because you code, you analyze, you do everything. So you wear so many different hats, and they'll often come to you and say, can you take what you created and create a presentation for us? We want to take it to a board and show us how these predictions are going to impact our revenue. Those are some of the things that you need to know you might be asked to do. Definitely you'll be asked to do those things. Or how this will impact the customers that we have. We want to change this. What do you think is going to happen? And I was very happy that we're doing A/B testing, because right now, as you're doing digital, one of the things they're saying is they take out campaigns, but some campaigns are more successful than others. So that's A/B testing. So I was very happy that it's now, I can also do that and help them. We're also doing segmentation for them, clustering. They haven't done that. So that's also going to help them to have a more targeted product. So it's not something that you do overnight, but because I already know I have this at my disposal, those are some of the algorithms that I'm going to implement there and then assist them, because they want to know what client is the ideal client for us, and how do we give them the best service that we can give them. And those are some of the things that we look at.
And how do we give them the best service that we can give them?
Excellent. I love it. So we're at 45 past the hour, and I want to give folks some time to ask questions. Now, just so folks know, there are 250 people here, so we're not going to get to answer every question. And if you know somebody who couldn't make it to this particular event, I'll be posting these in the office hour playlists for all of the projects. Okay? A couple questions. What I'd like people to do is, why don't we do the following? If you want, you can either put your question in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the hand-raising thing in Zoom. Okay. So one question that I saw from Alec, which I'll use just to start, is what is kind of like the math that you need to know when you're learning data science, or when you want to be a data scientist?
Okay, I'll say you need stats, obviously, which encompasses all the math. You need to be very good with algebra. You need math. Because it depends on the industry that you're going to go into and what kind of calculations are there. So, for example, I'm in finance, insurance, all those things. I need math to help me with conversions. I need to understand cost of capital ratios, all those things. Okay. So you need a basic foundation of just basic algebra, and then you need stats. That's a no-brainer. And then depending on which industry, because that's also very important, that's going to determine what kind of arithmetic you're going to need.
Good point. Yeah. So that's a really great point. So algebra, stats, and then it's kind of like choose your own adventure. That's great. Okay. Well, let me, we have a question here. Let's start with Ayo Alade. I'm going to unmute your mic, Ayo.
We have a question here. Let's start with Ayo.
All right. Let's see here.
So, hi guys, good evening. Can you hear me?
All right.
Yes.
Here.
Okay. So the first question I'd like to ask is
and Ayo, we're going to do just one question per participant. So this will be the question, okay?
We're going to do just one question per participant. So this will be.
I found that I've been trying to learn data science for a while, and the best way I've been able to, grasp onto the module was when I started World Punch University projects. That I have been able to, implement and, see how solutions can be applied. So I think that would be the best way for most data scientists when getting into the field. My question goes as this: what are the job search tips that you can provide us with? Because I've been trying to apply for data science internships on just LinkedIn. I don't know if you have any tips on that and tips for writing a resume or a CV as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayo.
Okay. So when I started applying, I had to change the way I write my CV. I had to think like a technical person, but also a business person. So it's very important. What I did was I have a list. I also put in the projects that we worked on with, World Quant. I put them there, and that helped tremendously to stay. We've done linear model, and this is what we're doing. I've done this model, and this is what we're doing. And if they want proof, I can provide that proof. That's the first thing that I did. The second thing I've seen, and I was also guilty of that, we tend to summarize our CVs a bit. We tend to summarize our CVs a bit. That I have worked on as university. This is what we're working on, and this is what we did, and that helps a lot because you just got the certificate. You're actually saying I did build something, and here it is. So I don't know if that will help you, but it helped me. And maybe also have a look at your CV, check out what they're saying in the area that you're applying on, and maybe tweak it a little. And
if I can add just one thing to that, I list for all of our projects, we have those bullet points, right? The things that you do in the project, the kind of highlights, and those are great bullet points to add to your CV, right? Because they talk specifically to the skills you guys are acquiring.
Yes, and don't underestimate those. When I applied from where I am now, one of the major things was JSON, because I put it there. I did it. Whether or not I have not been doing it for 2 years or not, if they give me something that requires JSON, I will be able to work on it. So whatever you've learned, you put it there as a skill because you do have that skill.
Excellent. Thank you. So thank you for the question, Ayo, and thank you, LESEGO, for the answer. Let's move on to another one. Anthony asks in the chat, do I need to learn deep learning as a data scientist? So like neural networks.
It depends. Do you want to do deep learning? Because you remember deep learning is a subset. It comes after machine learning. So if that's something you're interested in, then you can learn it. But from what I've seen, like deep learning, you'll have to, they do with AI, image recognition, all those things. So for me personally, I have not delved into deep learning. The machine learning experience and skills that I have now are sufficient. They're more than sufficient for the work that I need to do. So I think if that's the route that you want to go, then go for it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Definitely. Deep learning is very cool. It's very sexy, but in a world where many companies are still dealing with all of their data in Excel, there's a lot of work to be done before anyone does any deep learning. So it's certainly not a requirement to be a data scientist. Would you agree with that, LESEGO?
I 100% agree. Maybe just as a little joke, when I started there, they said like now, and that was like, nobody's ever asked me that before. They just gave me crappy laptops. And I was like, oh, damn, what laptop? And they wanted to buy me one that had that NVIDIA graphic card. And that's like very expensive. And I was asking, why do you want to give me this? They're like, aren't you going to do deep learning? So there is still a lot of confusion, even with companies, on the difference between machine learning and deep learning. They just assume machine learning is deep learning.
Yeah, wow, great point. Did you get the fancy laptop though? That's what we all want to know.
Yes, I did.
Good. And by the way, for folks who are thinking about like how fancy a laptop do I need to be a data scientist, keep in mind that when you're using those big models, most of that work now is done on the cloud. So you don't need a fancy laptop to do fancy data science. All right, so don't rush out and spend thousands of dollars. Okay, so next we have a hand raised here in the participants window. So Oluwafemi, I'm going to ask to unmute your mic, and then we'd like to hear your question.
Thank you very much for a very wonderful, insightful session. So I would like to ask the speaker, though I know doing data science, there are a lot of tools in which we need to learn. So I would like to ask more about what was our learning path, what was the challenges, because I know there are quite a lot of tools in which we need to learn to become a data scientist. What was our learning path, what are the challenges in which she faced in the process of becoming a data scientist?
The challenges, I think, for me, when I started, especially because I didn't start with Python, was wrapping my head around, coding. And then when I started with Python, was actually understand, because you've got two different, you have supervised and unsupervised, and then trying to understand how do I apply, which path do I follow. That was one of the challenges. And then one of the other challenges was I didn't know, like, when they say you're building this algorithm, where is it that I'm building? Like, that was for me like something that was not very clear, although I've gone through all of these things. And then also the other thing that I found challenging before was like there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of you've got dashboards, you've got data lakes, you've got there's just a lot. Deciding what am I learning and what am I reading, because it can be very overwhelming. While you're busy with Python, they'll tell you Python has a built-in SQL database that you can actually access from Python, but to do that, you have to learn certain things. So being focused for me and seeing things through was always a challenge, because every time I'm doing this, something else is coming up and I'm feeling like I'm being left behind. I'm not doing as much as I can do. And how I overcame that was I decided that I'm going to be more focused. What are the core things that I need to become a data scientist? Because there's so many blogs, so many things that people tell you, you need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. But you can't get all those things at one go. And if you're working, you have a family, you have all of these things, there's so little time that you can dedicate to studying. That time, how can I use it productively? So I had like a timetable to say, from this time to this time, I'm doing this because this is the core skill that I need to be able to do this. So I was lucky because I had already statistics. So the thing that I needed to focus on was actually learning how to take that and code it. And then once I'm done with this, I now need to know to learn about databases. Once I'm done with that, what is it that else that I need to do? So I became more focused and more realistic with how I can use my time. And that has helped me because if you don't do that, you're going to pull yourself in 700 different directions and you're not going to accomplish anything. There's a lot that's been released every day. There's patches, there's this. You just need to know what your target is. Have a plan, and no matter. You just need to know what your target is. Have a plan, and no matter.
Excellent. I think, LESEGO, are you there? We might have had a connectivity issue.
Excellent. I think, LESEGO, are you there? We might have had a connectivity issue.
All right. Well, it looks like...
Sorry?
There she... Wait, hold on.
All right.
You're back.
Oh, was I gone?
Just for a little bit.
Sorry, there she... Wait, hold on.
When did you lose me? I didn't even
why don't you just do the...
Oh, when did you lose me? I didn't even
why don't you just do the...
I'm not really sure about data engineering, so I'm not going to lie. That's not something that I actually looked into, so you'll have to help me there.
Well, I think this is a really good point that you made, which is that, data science happens in teams, on the one hand. A really good way to think about data engineering is it's the person who puts the pipes into place. So we have data at a website, we need to bring it in and put it into a database, and then we need to make sure that database is then indexed with our 300 other databases in a giant data warehouse. And so the person whose job it is to move that data from one place to another so that it's in the right place, so that a data scientist can do their exploratory data analysis or build their models, that's sort of what a data engineer does.
And maybe just to add, now that you say that, you reminded me of something. There are ads where, remember, we're still very new in this data science. Remember the person who's writing the spec is not an expert in what the data science does. So they'll put a spec for a data engineer with the requirements for a data engineer and put data scientist. And that is what, in most cases, makes people not to apply or think that they're inadequate to apply for that, because there's so many things that they don't know. You don't even need to know those things, but because they're not required for a data scientist, but because the job spec was written like that, and most of them are copy and paste, then you go out, you're like, there's 20 things that I need, I only know 5. But maybe that 5 is all you need.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, LESEGO, we're at time, and of course we know it's late for you in South Africa, so we want to be respectful of your time. But I personally want to thank you, and I'm sure that people, if they want to drop a little message into the chat, thanking LESEGO for taking the time to chat with us, it would be much appreciated. LESEGO, if people wanted to continue the conversation, is there a way that they could connect with you?
Yes, I did post my link for LinkedIn on the chat. I'll just post it again now.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm not very active on LinkedIn. I just have the profile. That's how people find me.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've posted it now that you can get me there.
All right, great, excellent. Well, thank you again, LESEGO, for chatting with us today. Thank everyone here for coming. We had 250 learners here today. And like I always say, you guys have, and as LESEGO said, right, you have lots of responsibilities. You've got job, you've got family. And in spite of that, you guys decided to show up today and learn something new and have a dialogue with each other, with people all around the world about data science. And I feel like that's something that we all need to recognize and celebrate.
Yes, and they must also remember, Nicholas, if there was one question before I go that said, I want to switch. If you want to switch to data science and you're coming from somewhere else, like somebody asked about the data engineers, there's also data analysts, there's data science. So if you feel like you're not there yet, but you want to switch, you can start as a data analyst whilst you're building your confidence to data scientist. But I honestly don't see the point. If you're going through that course, I feel you are ready. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you again. And for everyone, we will see you here at the next event. All right. So thanks, everyone, and take care and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Nicola.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stanika.
Record.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stanika.
Record.